Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Guns and Guitars. I'm Dan, and today we are looking at the Canik Mete SFX Pro. Now, I've got over 1,200 rounds through this gun over the last 3 or 4 months, and there's a lot to love about it. There's actually a couple of things that I really don't care for about it. So, if you know anything about this gun, maybe you've been on the fence about it for a while, just hear me out. I'm Dan, this is Guns and Guitars. Let's get started. Now, before we get started, I want to thank J Sales for selling me this gun specifically at a discount. It's one of the ways that they like to help out my channel, is just helping me get more firearms in my collection so that I can review. And so I really appreciate them. They are local to me, but they are also a major online retailer, and they have a wide variety of Caniks available for sale. So if you can't find the one that you're looking for at your local shop, check out jngsales.com. They likely have it. Now, as I mentioned in the intro of this video, I have well over 1,200 rounds through this gun in the last 3 or 4 months, and that's actually more than double what I usually do in a review. But the reason why I have so many rounds through this gun is for 2 reasons. One, I have actually just been able to get out and shoot more often lately, which has been awesome. But 2, this has just been a really fun gun to shoot, and that's kind of what I expected, and that's actually the reason why I got it. So if you follow my channel, you might know that I have the original TP9 SFX that I got like 6 years ago, and out of all the guns in my collection, this is the only one that goes to the range with me every single time. I've absolutely loved this gun. I've been through a lot of different handguns, and this one is actually just bone stock, and I found that I've just been going to it more often than any other firearm, so much so that I replaced my compact carry gun with the TP9 SC Elite. Now, a lot of people call them budget-friendly guns. At this point, I don't think you can call them budget friendly. There was a day when you could get Caniks starting in the $200 to $300 range, and then I believe this one I paid $600 for, but it came with a Vortex optic. I think they ran less than $500 at the time, which is pretty awesome considering all the competition features that they load these things with. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown on the specs of this gun. It comes in at about $619, $629 street price, and it comes with a 5 3/4 inch threaded barrel. That's actually the number one reason why I decided to upgrade from my original SFX, is because of the threaded barrel. But that in and of itself isn't enough of a reason for me to upgrade, especially since you can get threaded barrels for these. That seems like it would be a more logical upgrade. A couple other things, it comes with the rival trigger, which is cool. It's the only Mete that I know of that comes with a rival trigger. I'm not sure why they decided to do that, but I am grateful. I do like the flat face 90-degree trigger that this thing comes with, as opposed to, for example, the original SFX, which had I want to say it's like a 4.5 or a 5-pound trigger, has lots of creep. It's almost like a 3-stage trigger. You have like your initial take up, and then it creeps, and then it breaks fairly cleanly, again at about, I don't know, 4.5, 5 pounds. This one has just your initial take up and then no creep, and then breaks cleanly at like 3.5 pounds. Now, I don't have a trigger pull gauge. I'm just going based on feel, but it is much lighter, much cleaner, much crisper. And so the trigger is another reason why I was interested in this model. Now, I don't have the factory sights on there, and that's something that we're going to talk about when we talk about the drawbacks of this gun that I didn't realize when I bought it. I have upgraded to suppressor height sights. I feel like a gun that comes with a threaded barrel needs suppressor height sights. But the original sights that come with it, you do get a tritium front sight and a blacked out rear sight, as opposed to the original, which comes with a fiber optic front sight and a blacked out rear, which you can see you have to take off in order to put on your optics plate to mount an optic. Now, I don't have an optic on it right now because I had to send my Holosun back to Holosun for them to fix it. But that's actually the reason why I decided to get the Mete SFX, is because the Mete SFX, you can actually see you keep your rear sight in addition to mounting your optic, which is another reason why I think you should have suppressor height sights so they can co-witness. A couple other upgrades to note as opposed to the original SFX. You'll notice that you have a slide release on both sides. Now, it's a recessed slide release, so it's really difficult to activate on accident, but as a lefty who shoots right-handed and occasionally also shoots left-handed, I do appreciate the ambidextrous controls. That was a really nice upgrade that I didn't realize I was getting. It also has a reversible magazine release. So again, if you're a southpaw like me and you shoot primarily left-handed, you can optimize it for your setup. Just like the original SFX, it does come with replaceable back straps, so you can just really finely tune it to your hands. But another upgrade that I knew that I was getting is this flared magwell. And this flared magwell is very fast. One of the things that I've always loved about Caniks is that those magazines just fly out, but now with the magwell, they fly right back in. So you can do reloads extremely fast without having to think too much about it. Those magazines, they just find their way back in no matter what. I forgot to mention with the barrel that the barrel is fluted and it looks very nice. Now, I think the fluting is for weight savings, but honestly, it's mostly for looks, especially with this new slide design. As you can see, quite a bit different from the original. We have, again, some cuts for weight savings. We have a really nice long cut on the top there if you want to replace your barrel with a ported or compensated barrel. I assume that that's what that is for. Also, really nice slide serrations. If you're one of those people that likes to grab forward serrations to cock your gun back, those are very nice. I personally just like to do that. This feels more like a fine motor skill that I don't want to rely on, versus this is definitely more of a gross motor skill. But it certainly looks cool on YouTube when you are racking your slide real fast like that. So those are all the features that I knew that I was getting with this gun. There were a few more that I actually found out after that I really liked, and I'll get to those in a minute. But first I'm going to talk about the things that I don't like. Firstly, did not realize when I got it that the optics cut is for a micro dot optic. So it's an RMSC or RMR-CC optics cut. I really thought that I was getting a standard RMR optics cut. So I must have been reading the materials wrong when I was researching this. And I just don't understand why on a gun this size, they would put a micro dot optic on it. Now, full disclosure, when I did put a micro dot on it, I put a Romeo 0 on it. It was just hilarious. Massive gun, micro size optic, but it did co-witness with the factory sights. But that just wasn't good enough for me. I mean, I bought this thing specifically for two reasons. One, it's got a threaded barrel, so I can shoot it suppressed. And two, again, because of the threaded barrel, I can put a comp on it, and I can use it as my competition gun, which is what I've been doing lately, which is why I have so many rounds through it now. In both, when using a suppressor or running in the competition, I really want full-size optic. That is kind of a non-negotiable for me. I don't want to be trying to compete with a Romeo 0. That's absolutely ridiculous. Now, the iron sights, again, I did upgrade them, but the original factory sights were fantastic. I actually ran this thing for like 500 or 600 rounds without an optic, just using the factory sights. And I shot the fastest that I've ever been able to shoot with them. That blacked out rear with the tritium white dot front sight. I don't know about the rear sight, but I know at least the front sight is made by Night Vision, which is a very reputable brand that makes night sights, really nice bright tritium vials so that you can see it really nicely in the dark. So I was really sad I actually had to take that off in order to put on these suppressor height sights. Now you might notice that I do have a full-size optic on it right now. This is a Vector Optics Frenzy X. Well, that's really hard to say. Vector Optics Frenzy X. And this is a clone sort of the Holosun 507C X2. It's better in a lot of ways and not as good in a lot of ways. So I'm still deciding whether or not I'm going to do a review video on that optic. But I did find a workaround, and that workaround is that Calculated Kinetics makes an adapter plate so that you can adapt an RMSC to a full-size RMR. Again, I just don't understand why Canik didn't put a full-size RMR cut into the optic. Obviously, it fits just fine. I've heard a lot of YouTubers talk about how they do that because there's not enough room to keep that rear sight if you use a microdot. But as you can see, this optic and plate are both sitting within that optics cut. So it does fit just fine. Actually, that's when I realized that a full-size optic didn't fit on this gun. Was I was trying to mount this thing on there and it fit in the footprint, but the screw holes didn't line up, which just about drove me insane. Now, when I finally got this optic mounted up with the adapter plate, that's when I realized that the factory sights no longer co-witnessed, which made me so sad. One, because as I mentioned, I really like the factory iron sights and I was really bummed that I was going to have to get rid of them. But two, I really thought when I was getting this thing that I was getting co-witnessing sights with it, and that just wasn't going to be the case if I wanted to use a full-size optic. Now remember, this was like 3 or 4 months ago when I got this gun, and at that time, nobody made a set of suppressor height sights for this thing, and that just really bummed me out. And so I set out to make a solution, and you might have caught it a couple weeks back. I made a video on how you can upgrade to these specific suppressor height sights, and my workaround was to use a Smith & Wesson M&P front sight and a Glock rear sight. And so it took a lot of trial and error. I was very proud of myself for figuring out. And then right after I posted the video, I found that Calculated Kinetics came out with a set of suppressor height sights for the Canik Mete series. Now, normally I would be really upset that I spent so much effort and money and trial and error and went through the effort of making a whole video about how to upgrade these, except for I'm just really glad that somebody saw the gap in the market and decided to do something about it. Now, obviously I have not installed them yet, but they are made exclusively for Calculated Kinetics by Night Vision. So same brand that the factory sights came with. These are $109 for the set, which is not a bad price considering it's from a quality brand. This also costs about $100 to $120, I don't remember specifically, for these two sights. These two sights though, it's just a blacked out rear and just a white dot front. And these are tritium front and rear. So they are just better sights all around. So I'm really excited to try those out. Obviously haven't installed them yet. I'm gonna save that for a future video where I go through the best upgrades for a Mete SFX Pro. But the coolest thing about the Calculated Kinetics sights is that if you buy them at the same time that you buy your optics plate, you actually save 35% on your optics plate. I think the optics plate is like $50 or $60, and these are $109. So I did it the more expensive way. I bought the optic plate first. Now, had I known that I was gonna have to drop an extra $150 just to get this thing to where I feel like it should be coming out of the box, that might have been enough to deter me from getting this gun. I probably instead would have just bought a threaded barrel for this gun and called it good. However, since I've had it, I've noticed a few ergonomic upgrades that they've made to this thing that I feel like did make it worth it overall for me to upgrade over the original SFX. So this gun is the fastest and flattest shooting and most accurate handgun that I own. I'm definitely better with this gun than any other handgun that I've ever owned. And I think that's for a few reasons. Again, a couple ergonomic upgrades. Well, firstly, you may notice right in here, there's a slightly deeper divot than the original SFX. It may be kind of hard. I'll do some close-ups so that you can see. But that, and you can also see that right here, there's a bit kind of carved out of the bottom of the trigger guard. So the trigger guard in general just got a couple of upgrades. You might also notice that the little beaver tail groove in the back, it's a bit more exaggerated on this one. Now those two things combined mean I can get a much higher up closer to the bore axis grip. I can get my fingers up closer underneath the guard there and the webbing of my hand right up in nice and deep, which makes for an extremely comfortable shooting grip, and just getting it just that little bit closer to the bore axis just makes it much easier to shoot. And so I didn't realize that I was getting that upgrade, and honestly, being able to feel the difference between these two guns makes me want to take a Dremel to those two spots on this gun, just to help out with that a little bit. Also, as a result, I've been able to use one of the other back straps, and I never was able to do that with my original SFX. I always thought that the one that came installed from the factory was the best feeling, versus this one. As you can see, the hump is a little bit higher. So again, I'll show them side by side. And I'll do a close-up as well so you can see it a little bit better. But you can see that this hump goes up a little bit higher. That makes it so that when I'm quick drawing from the holster, that my hand makes it up into that groove a lot faster. Also, on my original SFX, you might be able to see, I actually did have to carve out a little bit on this Picatinny rail in order to mount a weapon light, because most of my weapon lights, they just didn't quite fit that groove for whatever reason. And so in order to get it to fit, I actually had to cut a little bit out. And then even still, it's so far away that I can't actually activate it easily. Like I have to kind of intentionally reach forward to activate it. One thing that I really appreciate about this one is that they seem to have worked that out. They've made those pick rails just a little bit wider. And so it fits in without carving. And for some reason, I can reach this one a lot better. Well, I wouldn't say a lot better. I can barely reach it without adjusting my shooting grip. Yeah, again, just a little ergonomic upgrade that I didn't realize I was getting. And those upgrades in and of themselves, I think, put this back into the category of worth the upgrade. So if you already have an SFX, you're thinking about picking up a Mete SFX Pro, for me, it was worth it. I'm in at about $750 now. And in order to make this one as good, I would need to replace the trigger. I would need to get an optics plate that does have an integrated rear sight. There is a company that makes one, I've just learned, that makes a suppressor height sight set with an optics plate with an integrated rear sight so that you can run an optic co-witnessed. You'd also have to get a threaded barrel. You would not be able to do a ported or comped barrel because of the slide. And then you would also need a magwell. And by the time you do all of those upgrades, you're going to be pretty close to what you spent on this. Here is a delightful little pro tip thanks to the guys at J&G Sales. They informed me that this speed bee for the CZ75 works for Canik mags, and it is a game changer for loading your mags quickly. Watch this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That was wicked fast. Now that being said, it's been a fantastic gun. I've shot this without cleaning it, without lubricating it, straight out of the box for over 1,200 rounds. In fact, I think I might celebrate by cleaning it tonight. But that's pretty freaking impressive. It's extremely fast. It's extremely accurate. It's more accurate than you are. I can tell you that right now. Now, if you guys are looking for an excellent holster for a Canik TP9 series, I highly recommend this SciTac. It's really inexpensive, but what I love about it is that it is active retention, meaning it will not come out unless you press the button. And it fits all TP9 series firearms as well as a few other brands, but it's been fantastic. So as you can see, the original SFX, the TP9 SF Elite, and then of course the Mete SFX Pro. Fantastic holster, adjustable height, so you can make it a low ride, which is what I like. I don't like drop leg. I don't like standard height. I like low ride. And of course, you can adjust the angle for it and everything. So really great active retention holster, probably the best that I could find for this gun without going for a full-on race holster that costs nearly as much as the gun does. Canik, if you're watching this, you guys are so close. I mean, I don't think that it would take much for you to just drill and tap these things for a full-size optic. Obviously, the cut is already the right size. You just need to drill the holes in the right spot and then put some suppressor height sights on it. Okay, there's already a brand now that's doing it. It's the same brand you're already working with. So it seems to me that Canik could easily remedy the issues that I have, and we'll see if maybe they do in the future. Now, make sure you are subscribed. As I mentioned earlier, I will be doing a video on the best upgrades for this thing. We're going to put on a comp, a ported barrel, a new trigger, and we're just going to race this thing out, see how fast and flat shooting we can get it to go. I'm Dan, this is Guns and Guitars, and I'll see you in that next video.